Greetings everyone and welcome in today's PCB webinar. My name is Gezim Zeneli and I am the Portfolio Marketing Manager for IT Security at PCB. Today we will discuss about the webinar topic ISO 27000 standards as a toolbox for the effective information security officer. The webinar will be presented by Mr. Dirk De Nijs, who is a PCB certified trainer and auditor. He has many years of experience working as a system engineer and consultant, and currently he works as a founder and consultant for the ModuleBuilder. I hope this webinar will give you facts and relevant information relating the ISO 27000 toolbox standards. If you have any question, you can write them at any time in question box in right hand control panel, or use the raise hand function to talk directly to Mr. Nijs. Please, Dirk, you may proceed with the presentation.
Thank you, Gezim. Well, good afternoon, everyone. So let's first talk a bit about myself. As Gezim already explained very nicely, I've got quite some experience in information security, both in public and the private sector. I've contributed to some courses like the Lead Cybersecurity Manager. I've also contributed to the Cybersecurity Incident Management Guide for the Belgian Cybersecurity. It's a very nice document. You can download it online for free. My education, well, I did Solvay in IT management, and afterwards I started collecting certifications. Some people catch Pokemon, I do certifications, yeah, I know. Everyone is hobby. The most important thing about this slide is I'm quite fond about the tool called 5 Ws and 1 H, and this entire presentation is made up like that. So, we're going to talk whom this is intended for, why and when and where this toolbox and this presentation can be of interest, and what you should or could put in your toolbox, and this all will be followed by a Q&A session. Q&A works both via the chat and via email, but we'll see that later on. So, knowledge is power, information liberates you, and education is a premise of progress in every society. So who can benefit from these skills, knowledge and understanding we're going to talk about now? Well, first of all, of course, the information security officers. Here it's mostly oriented at the middle management security officer, so the guy who needs to have his feet on the floor or down in the trenches and get things done in the IT department or near the legal department, or when he distributes, for example, awareness sessions. It can also be useful for the C-level oriented security officers as a reference guide and a tool to steer and govern. It is mostly oriented at ISO 27001 implementers, auditors and trainers. Especially for ISO 27001 trainers, this can be interesting because during trainings quite a few times you'll get these kinds of questions, and now you have a very nice presentation and resources to talk about and mention it. And of course anyone else who would like to get ahead of ISO 27001, who wants to get started somehow, well, let's have a look at it. As Steve Jobs mentioned so nicely, customers don't measure how hard you tried. They measure you on what you deliver. That makes life quite interesting, so you have to use the right tool for the right job in the right place, in the right way. Because you need to get the job done effectively, so actually having a result, and as efficiently as possible. And it needs to be specific, measurable and timely also, with the SMART objectives. So in that case it's interesting to have the right tools at hand and to have a toolbox at hand and to know what to use and where to use it and when. And the most important, when not to use it. Remember the idiom about the hammer and the nail? A lot of people will hammer out there. Let's try to avoid that one. So what are we going to put in this toolbox? Well, there are 10 common issues I've encountered the past 6 years, and I collected it here together. I keep getting questions about it and I wanted to share it with you. It's divided in 4 parts. Let's go to the first part. Getting quickly an up-to-date list of all ISO 27001 and other ISO IT management related standards. How hard can that be? You just go surf and Google it, don't you? Yeah, perhaps. Then you've got the other issue. Once you've got your list, you need to keep it up to date and you need to stay up to date. Do you go every day, every week on their website of ISO.org, or do you have it delivered automatically into your mailbox? And once you're aware about which standards have been published or have changed, you need to decide whether you're going to buy it or not. How are you going to motivate that decision? Because there's a budget for it that you need to spend. So we're going to look at those items now. As I mentioned, you can just go to the ISO.org website and you have on your right here the ISO 27001 information security topic. When you click on it, you will see a standard and some documentation, and that's about it. There are about 50 different documents in the ISO 20007 family. You don't see them there nicely grouped. You need to find them, you need to go search for them. And unfortunately, Google isn't your best friend here in this case. So, but you could just say, I do search ISO, and you start searching with everything. It starts with 27. As I mentioned before, good luck. You'll have a very nice evening, and you will never be sure if you got them all. And then you can redo that exercise every week. So they've got at ISO a very nice solution for it. They call it an online collection. Originally, this was a few years ago a kind of collection that you could subscribe to. And by subscription, I mean you paid a monthly fee, and in exchange for this monthly fee, you could consult all these standards. So that's quite nice if you think there are about 50 standards. Let's say, just for the figure of speech, the idea that each standard would cost $100, that's $5,000. Well, in that case, you're willing to pay a small monthly fee to get all those recent standards and always up to date. Unfortunately, they stopped this subscription service. That was quite a disappointment for me, because it was very easy. Every new standard that came out, I just had to go look it up and browse through it. And if I really wanted to use it offline, I could still buy or have the PDF bought by my clients. But the good thing about this is they kept the collection online. So you can still have a list of all current ISO 27 standards being out there, being published. The other nice thing about this, you've got here this follow button. If you're logged into the ISO.org ecosystem and you check it, then you'll get automatic notifications whenever it changes. Just like that, about 4 weeks ago, I was notified by mail that there are new standards for ISO 27035, and that the current one was, at that moment, the current one was withdrawn. And that saves you a lot of time, because you wake up in the morning, you look at your email and say, oh, something's changed. That's nice. Let's have a look. Do I care? Do I have to care? Do I not have to care? Should I tell my clients? And you're always up to date. So I can really recommend it. You just go to this URL, and there you have it online. And if you want to know more about the specific standard, you can just click, for instance, on the 27017, and you'll see the details. You go straight to the record of that standard. Now, but this is only for information security management systems. There are a lot more IT management standards out there. ISO 9001, 14001, 15000, the 20000 series, 38000 series, really a bunch of them. I don't know even how much there are, probably about something like 100 or more. Also the business continuity and disaster recovery are included in this collection. So this is very nice when you're talking with someone and he's very expert in, let's say, ISO 9001. And you go like, okay, I need to know which standards do exist nowadays for ISO 9000. You go to this page and you see, oh, I've got them all here, and they're all relevant for IT management. If there would be an ISO 9000 for controlling the quality of an industrial plant or a nuclear plant without any IT involved, then you won't see it here. Then you don't really need it. So this is a very nice filter for the information security officers. And again, the same system. Once you've signed into the ISO.org ISO ecosystem, you can start following this collection. And again, it's only consulting of the list. You can't consult actual standards anymore, which is still a pity, but then again. Next slide. So here when you click, for instance, on the ISO 27001 information security fiche, you see this screen with a very nice explanation of what's in this family, what's in this standard, and you can also say, I can preview it. And this is extremely handy when you have a new standard being published. like for instance 27035 that has been withdrawn and republished, then you go like, okay, I need to know what has changed, and I need to know if I need this PDF in my particular situation, or does my client need this PDF? Well, then you just click on the preview via the online browsing platform, and then you get this screen. And here you can see the forward, introduction up to terms and definitions, and at the end the bibliography, with font text. And all the grayed out parts you can't actually consult. You can just see the table of contents. But just by seeing the table of contents, you can start comparing and informing yourself. And you can take an informed and managed decision whether you should buy this standard or not. Also, when you're asked about a specific standard, you can just look at this table of contents and then say, yes, I know the basics about it. This and this and this topic are taken into account in the standard. If you want me to, I can purchase the standard and look further into it. Quite often people are just happy to know what's the standard about and nothing more. But sometimes it's interesting to have it anyway. So, the other issues that you often quite have is getting the right skills for key personnel, locating PECB partners and trainers, and also quite important is verifying job candidates and subcontractors if they're properly certified. So, how do we do that? Well, again, it's quite simple. You go to the PECB.com website, and this is basically your key to success when hiring people, because here you can actually check the skills of the people you want to hire. Because you have to hire for attitude and later on train for skill. And that's also something you can do here in this slide. Because it's your attitude or not the aptitude of a candidate that determines how high they go, their altitude in their career. And here you can perfectly say, okay, I've got this very nice job candidate, but he hasn't yet the lead implementer certificate or the training. And so you can go here and have a look and say, okay, I need for ISO 27001, do I need to give him an introduction, a foundation, lead implementer, or lead auditor? You can make your choice and again register the training. Quite a few times I've seen people who only needed the introduction or the foundation and they were sent to a lead implementer course. Those poor people went bananas after 2 days because they were going, I don't want to know everything about implementing it, I just want to understand it. Then you go like, okay. So to avoid such situations, this is a very nice place to go. You also have it for all the other ISO systems that PECB offers, like quality management, health and safety, continuity and resilience, IT security, risk and management. But I would say have a look at it yourself. It's a very nice tool, and I quite often use it for clients when they want to be informed about what trainings exist. I just say, go to this website, have a look, or I can make a resume for you, basically. Now the next web slides I already mentioned before. You have to find a PECB partner which is approved, agreed, accredited, or you need to find an accredited or certified trainer from PECB. Well, in your own country, let's say in my case Benelux, for me it's quite easy. I know the persons whom to contact. But if I would need to go to, let's say, the UK, that would be a bit more difficult. Still, I happen to know some names from UK PECB trainers. Then let's say Australia, because my client wants to provide training in an Australian satellite office. And okay, we've got a time difference, we've got some other issues. How am I going to find someone in Australia? And how am I going to be certain that this is a valid partner of PECB? Well, you just go to this webpage, PECB partners, you have an entire list, and you can pick a choice, you've got all the coordinates. And exactly the same applies also for the certified trainers. If you have to get somewhere people trained, you can go in here in this list and you see, okay, do we have in Australia PECB certified trainers? Yes, no. That's also very nice when you need to organize trainers or trainings, that you can see, oh, do I have to have people flown over, or can it all be done locally? Or just in case when you organize a training, here you can find backup trainers, just in case the main trainer gets ill or gets an accident or something. So basically, this slide is about making partnerships with the right persons So you will get an incredible impact on your success for your missions, because teamwork makes dream work. Okay, I hope I'm not going too fast here for you guys. Then the last one, and it's actually one I had to use recently. You get all these CVs of people saying, yes, I'm Mr. Right or I'm Mrs. Right for you, and I'm the perfect person to do this, and I've got all these certificates because I have followed the training. Oh, you have followed the training. Yes, I have followed the training with that trainer. Do you know him? Yes, I know him very well. It's a very good trainer, a very interesting trainer. Okay, so can I see your certificate number, please? Your certification number? Because I've got your first name and last name. No, I don't really have a certification number. But wait, you said you only followed the training, you didn't take the exam. Oh, okay. Another case was that the guy actually said, yes, I took the exam. Okay, did you pass it? Not really. Okay. The case I haven't encountered yet is the one faking it, saying, yes, I've got the certification number and I passed the exam and everything. But just in case, when you would, to avoid that use case, you can take his first name, last name, his certification number, you submit it in this form, and it should be over there. You should also be able to see if his certificate is still valid or not. And if you have any issue saying, okay, I can't find him, or perhaps his name is not correctly spelled in the system, you can also email it to pcb.com so they can investigate it further. Sometimes the name isn't spelled correctly, or there's a typo in the certification number, whatever. You always have to give the advantage of the doubt. But as I very nicely put it in the United States, in God we trust, the rest we test. Well, I don't know about the trust part, that's fine, but I prefer to test anyway. And then we get to the next part of our toolbox, is establishing a statement of applicability template and establishing an assessment and audit questionnaire. Now, establishing a statement of applicability, which is a critique of the objectives and controls which the organization has selected as suitable to its business needs, that's a challenge. Because first of all, you need to define a scope, you need to define what you want to do, what you want to protect, and when you want to protect it. You also need to select controls, technical controls, managerial controls, preventive, detective, corrective. Those controls, you should match them to the ISO 27001 standard. Okay. Then you should document all that, what you have selected, and then it's quite easy, you need to make it happen. Now, just to start with the first exercise, you need to create a huge list in Excel or whatever tool. And that basically means that you take the ISO 27001 PDF and either you retype it completely into an Excel or whatever format, or you do the better copy pasting work, and that will take you about a day or 2 days, and then you go bananas. Or you go download this template, which is a kind of open source project on the ISO 27001security.com website, and they've got this entire work already done for you. And I've checked it quite a few times, it is correct. It matches exactly with the 2701 Annex A. And the very nice thing about this, they made this text as well in English, Spanish, German and French. So if you happen to work in one of those 4 main languages, you don't have to do the better copy pasting work during 4 days. It's done for you here. It's a very nice tool. The very nice thing about this is actually that all the data is already there, that you can use it, and that you can also very easily extend it and add, let's say, automatic colors for conditional formatting. You can add graphs to it. You can start using it as an assessment tool if you know the standard by heart, etc., etc., etc. Now you're going to think, okay, this is basic, why bother? Well, I have seen quite a few clients losing quite valuable consultancy time just on this. And if I can copy paste it from the internet and it's legal and I'm allowed to use it and I can do it in 5 minutes time, I don't mind saving 2 days of work to my client. And then you need to assess and audit also your standards. Now, I've shown in the previous slide, which I show now again, that you can take this huge list, and if you know the standard by heart, you can start using this as an assessment list. But what happens when you need to delegate it? When you're just being in there saying, okay, you're the senior security officer, you're assigned about 2 or 3 medium and junior security officers who need and go discover the current maturity level and the security awareness and security implementations within an organization. And what if this organization is about, let's say, 5 to 4,000 persons large? Well, if you have to do it all yourself, with your own brain, let's say, this would take you about 2 months or 3 months before you've done the entire tour. When you start delegating it, and you need to explain those medias and those seniors perhaps, and especially juniors, everything they need to ask, and you need to double check and triple check what they've done, well, you've spent again your 2 months time. Or you go find a tool like this on the internet from Praxium. It's very nice. It's about 94 pages of questions that you can ask. Basically, they are all formulated here as statements, but put auxiliary verb in front, a question mark in the end, and you've got perfect audit questions. And you can start selecting on them. You can say, okay, these questions need to be asked, these questions do not need to be asked. You can also send out this list to people and say, okay, I've got the 94 pages of questions, but since you're the HR department, I'm only to give you the HR department related questions. And then again, that's still a lot of questions, a lot of pages. I can boil it down to the top 20 most essential questions that need to be answered. So you can very quickly compile a questionnaire, send it to a number of people, have it filled in, and have it semi-automatically also processed and evaluated. So again, it's a tool you can use and you can enlarge. However, this is something you need to buy. So you can't actually just copy-paste it from the internet, but if you've got a very large project, why not? It's not that expensive and it's quite handy. And at least you have also the advantage because it's independent of you. So you can always say, oh, I didn't just write down some questions. I actually went to an independent authority who has compiled this list of questions, which has been checked by multiple consultants and security officers. So it has a certain value. Okay. So Praxium.com, they also have it for other standards, very nice. Then the last part, language. What's in a word? Would a rose still be a rose, etc., etc.? Who hasn't yet encountered the issue that people call a document a policy, and when you look at it, it's a policy within the first 3 words, then it becomes a standard, then it becomes a guideline, and then it becomes a novel. And if you're unlucky, it becomes a trilogy. Okay. And then you get lost in the document and nobody reads it anymore. So, here we're going to talk about how you can deal with terminology, language, content resources, and linguistics. Again, I'm going to give you the basics as freely published by ISO, and I'm also going to talk about a tool that you can purchase and that can get you started. Okay. Here you see the URL and the web page where you can find the principles and the rules for the structure and drafting of ISO and IEC documents. And this is quite handy in those discussions where you go like, you know, there's really a difference between should and shall. And then you got the other guy saying, I don't see the difference. There is no difference. Okay, let's get to basic grammar. You get past that one. And then you get at the word must. Now for the Germanic languages like Dutch and German, must has a bit different meaning than in English. And it creates quite a bit of confusion. So this document very nicely stipulates what must means in an English written standard. And again, you've got the advantage of saying, hey, it's not me saying that. I'm not being subjective about it. I'm just following the rules. I'm just following the book published by ISO. And since we all agreed upon using this internationally agreed upon standard, why not respect it? So here you can find this document. I had to use it quite a few times. It's very nice and it's nice to have also. Then okay, writing policies. Now I think that policy writing is my favorite pastime of during working hours. Absolutely. I couldn't stop writing policies even if I needed to stop for something else like dinner. Okay, I'm being a bit ironic here. Writing policies when you switch multiple clients is often starting from scratch again. And once you have written the 10th acceptable use policy, you go like, okay, I have written this already 9 times, and about 9 times, 80% of the material is identical. Unfortunately, I have signed for each client an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't just copy-paste what I've written in the past. I need to repeat those 2 days or 3 days of typing the boilerplate again from scratch, from the same resources. Okay, and that's just for the acceptable use policy. Then we've got the 20 or 30 other policies, and then you go like, oh dear. Now the nice thing about this is there's a person who started in 2007 somewhere, 2006, compiling all those boilerplate texts that you can possibly imagine and put it together in one big work. And then if you take any control, let's say 7.1, you've got about 3 or 4 pages of possible paragraphs and text that you can use according to the severity and security levels that you need. How severe or how open your policy needs to be. And you can actually really just copy paste it. All the language is properly set. You can't be mistaken about interpretation. It is written in a format that's understandable for the common user. And it's also written in a format that the most lawyers, you always have an exception of course, cannot object. They are very clear. The disadvantage of this book is, or this work, it's very Anglo-Saxon oriented. So there are certain things in it that you can't use in, let's say, Belgium or Germany because it's a bit too different from the local culture. But anyway, it's a very nice thingy, and I have used it in the past also as a cross-check. I had to check policies. I was going like, okay, we all know the ISO 27001 standard, but let's see what this person thought about it. Are there things that I overlooked that I did not think about it? Eventually, was very lucky to note and to realize that I was very aligned with what this person had written, and I didn't need to check anymore. It's all topics that could and should be covered in my Belgian and European context were represented there. But then again, if you have, let's say, the typical big deployment scenario with about 5 or 4 juniors and 1 or 2 medias who need to start writing policies, well, it's a very nice start. It's a bit expensive, but it's nice. But I have to warn you again also, it's very Anglo-Saxon based. It's not just copy everything and then go use it. It's a boilerplate. I think it's worth mentioning. And it's up to date with the 2013 standard. Okay, and that was about my presentation. I also have to announce here some IT security training courses. For instance, there's a lead cybersecurity manager course, which is 5 days, and it's not oriented towards technical people. It's not oriented to the security guys who know that. It's oriented to the pointy head bosses, the people who need to go in and say, okay, I need to start managing security. Do you have a good book on security? Oh dear. Yes, but we don't have the book, but we have a very good course that is oriented toward, let's say, the typical operational manager, the project manager, the compliance officer, who needs to get from zero to hero training without suffering too much. It's very nice. Then we also have the lead pentest professional course, more oriented to pentest project management. I haven't followed that training, so I can't talk too much about it, I'm sorry. And then an extremely nice course is an ISO 27034 Application Security Lead Implementer and Lead Auditor courses. They're extremely nice. They talk mostly about SDLC, Software Development Life Cycle, from the conceptual phase up to production, putting into production phase, up to the disposal phase, and how to maintain it meanwhile. It's extremely nice, and it tells you how you get application security implemented in your company. And not just by having a small chat at a coffee machine saying, okay, do it like that and we'll be fine. No, you really get hand over the entire 27034 training standard and framework so you can actually do it. And I know one of the trainers who gives this, and it's fascinating, really fascinating. So when you follow a training, exam and certification fees are included always. You can find more information about this at pecb.com/events or at pecb.com/it-security. Okay, and I would say thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dirk, for this very informative presentation. And you have just mentioned about the training and certification that we provide. So I just want to add that the PCB certificate will demonstrate your dedication in implementing and managing these processes and frameworks, and most importantly, you will be recognized worldwide. So we will go ahead with the questions. We have one question which says, how about the ISO 27032? Do you recommend it as a part of a toolbox? And could you explain its importance toward the ISO 27001 implementation?
Would I recommend it? Yes. Why? It explains very nicely what cybersecurity is about, because nowadays we've got all these difficult terms like data security, information security, cybersecurity, and it's becoming one big melting pot and nobody understands this anymore. So for the security professional who wants to understand clearly what is implied by cybersecurity and how it needs to work, it's very nice. And also the standard will allow you to go to your senior management and start explaining, okay guys, or dear senior management, depending how much terms you are with them and how you can communicate towards them. Dear senior management, you've heard this thing in the news about cybersecurity. Well, let's look at this presentation I made with some extracts from the ISO 27032. Very nice figures, drawings, explaining everything in detail, and it's marvelous. You can just use a standard almost as a presentation on itself, and it gives you a very nice framework. I would definitely use it. Does it replace 2701 and 2702? No, it's complementary. It's basically explaining this small niche of security, this niche of security and how you should relate to it. Does that answer the question?
Yes, I think, and thank you for your answer and also for this highly informative presentation. And I also want to thank all the attendees for joining us live today. I suggest you to take time and see our future webinars that we will be hosting. Next Wednesday we will host a webinar topic which is called Making Business Continuity Implementation in ISO 27001 Easier with ISO 22301. You can also take time and visit our website pecb.com on the webinar section to register for our future webinar. Thank you once again and hope to meet you on our future webinars.